Now, as I said, it is my privilege and my pleasure to introduce our special guest speaker this evening. And let me tell you a little bit about Amy. Have you ever wanted to be the best version of yourself? Yes, of course we have. Achieve more success? Yes. Sell more with confidence for those of you who are in the sales and marketing area? If you answered yes, guess what? You are definitely in the right place tonight. Amy Lemire is in the business of creating breakthroughs in sales, confidence, influence, and revenue growth without sacrificing, always a challenge, work and life balance. She is the creator of the Sales Confidence Code and the author of 2 books, which she has on the table over there, Sales and Income Less Than 90 Days, and also From Zero to Speaker Hero, How to Achieve Fame, Fun, and Fortune as a Speaker or a Trainer. So Amy is excited and passionate about sharing her mission with you this evening to create breakthroughs in sales, confidence, and personal growth, one habit at a time. After spending years in self-development, sales jobs, and training, she has found 6 key elements to success that are missing from traditional educational and corporate training programs. She became a master at these 6 habits that she will share with us tonight. This session is for all of you, entrepreneurs, sales professionals, and anyone who wants to learn how to achieve more and influence with confidence. From stuck to success, please help me welcome my good friend and distinguished Toastmaster, Amy Lemire.
Thank you. Thank you, Jerry, for the wonderful introduction. And good evening, fellow Toastmasters, welcome guests, and honored dignitaries. Life is happening for you, not to you. As I looked at the card that I just opened in the mail, I read that saying 3 or 4 more times. Life is happening for you, not to you. And I had a smile on my face. There's 2 reasons for that. Number 1, it was December of 2018, and I looked back on the past year of my life. And to say that I've been through a lot of changes and transformations is an understatement. And I finally really did feel like everything was meant to be. Now, the other reason I was excited is it was an invitation to go see one of my favorite motivational speakers out in Los Angeles, California, Tony Robbins. I felt like it was a calling because I knew that one of my hobbies was self-development, and maybe this would be a great opportunity to get back into that path. But the story doesn't really start there. Tonight, what I'm going to share with you is how I arrived at that moment of appreciation by finding the good. By making it a habit to find the good in everything, every person, every event, every situation, even the ones that might look like a setback. The story actually started a year earlier. I remember it just like it was yesterday. Now, I was still living here in the northwestern suburbs, and I remember I had been invited to a women's evening about leadership. There were 2 women that were very high up in Mary Kay. And they promised me, they said, we're not going to be doing facials. We're not even going to try to sell you our makeup tonight. This is something really different. I was curious as I drove my car on that cold Friday night in January. But I also remember thinking about the week. I thought about the job I wasn't really happy about. I thought about all the things I had in my life. I lived in a great house. I was a corporate and global sales director. I was making great money. I lived in a big house. I had trophies. I had a lot of Toastmasters awards on my wall. I had sales plaques, but something was missing. And I didn't know what it was. Let's just say it was missing. As I went into the evening, I remember walking into the room and I saw 20 other women sitting there. And I could tell they were all missing it too. And then the two women stood up to speak. I remember telling myself, they've got it. They were charismatic. They were joyful. They had this spark. They had something, and I don't know what it was, but I wanted it. Now, they went on to talk about this course about thought habits. And I don't know what it was. I didn't care, but I felt myself grab my wallet and pull out my credit card. And I was in. And I didn't even have those excuses of, I don't have the time or I don't have the money. I remember leaving that night with a box full of books. One of the books I received was this book called The Greatest Salesman in the World by Og Mandino. I never even heard of it, and I've been in sales for quite some time. But at that point, I was excited and I was ready to turn a new page. Now, let's fast forward just a minute. If we think about why we get stuck, why we feel unfulfilled, why is that? Why don't the things on the outside make us happy? And I want to tell you, my friends, it's because our thought habits either support our success or they sabotage our success. And what I quickly found out is that much of my happiness came from stuff. It came from everything outside, not from within. But let's take this up to another level. How many of you have ever felt stuck? How many of you have ever experienced success? Great. If you want to know some startling statistics, in the United States, it's been said that 80% of us stay in jobs that we don't like just for the healthcare insurance. And post-pandemic, according to the Department of Labor, did you know that turnover a year ago in employment was about 3%? Does anyone want to guess what it is today? It's about 31% to be specific. Why is that? It's because we're burned out. We're finding that these jobs and careers aren't as fulfilling as we thought they should be. And if you think about it, the whole American dream, work hard, do the right thing, get a good paying job, go to college. We hear all of that. I heard that from my parents as well. And then you can achieve all the success. But even famous people crumble. Did anybody see what happened on national television at a very famous awards event a couple months ago? Even famous people crumble. Now, if I fast forward a minute, I will tell you that as I went through that year and I began to study these thought habits, I really began to see that life was happening for me, not to me. But let's fast forward to when I went to that workshop. I was so excited. I remember walking into the Los Angeles Convention Center. I had just moved back to St. Louis. I had just gotten divorced, and I was about to hit 3 of the 5 biggest stressors in our life. I'm walking in and I hear the loud music and everybody's high-fiving and everyone's excited and people are already jumping around. And I thought, I'm going to check my phone one more time before I go into the seminar. And then I saw it. It was an email from Human Resources and my boss. And my stomach dropped. You see, the company that I was working for at the time got bought out by a private equity firm. And we all know what happens, right? The leadership team is usually dissolved, and I happen to be on the leadership team. Now, I remember for a split second, as I made the call to HR and just got the news on the spot before the seminar, there was a part of me that really wanted to go back into that pity party and have that moment of despair. But something shifted. I remember just stepping back from it for a minute and selling myself and looking up at the sky and saying, you know what? I don't know what this is, but God must have a really great plan for me this year. Because not only have I moved and I'm on my own now, I've just gotten laid off. And I trusted that moment. And I remember the next day I got up and I got some good news. The first good news I got is I got a really great severance package. But that's really not what matters. What matters is it took that event to finally get me to get certified to teach thought habits to other people. Because deep down, my friends, that job I had, even though it paid well, even though it gave me recognition and it gave me things, I was really burned out and wasn't happy in it. So that event inspired me to take the step forward that I've been putting off. Now, the next thing I want to share with you is what I know you all came for, and that is to hear what are some of these 6 habits that I talked about that really got me to move, again, from a place of being stuck to experiencing success, from getting me to a place of seeing that life is happening for me and not to me. So if you're taking notes, write down the word belief, and you can write it BELIEF. And I'm going to tell you what each one of those letters really means from my experience. The first thing I learned, number 1, believe you always have a choice. If you spend your time throughout the day saying, I have to, I should, I must, I hate to break it to you, but you might be on the cycle of obligation. Are you in a job you don't enjoy? Are you in a relationship that's not working? Do you have some other habits that you might not want to share with any of us? But the good news is that if you can make it a habit to say, I get to, I choose to, and I want to, that can quickly transform your focus. Now, one example I'll share is I had a friend and she said, I need to lose some weight. And I gave her this advice, and I saw her about 3 or 4 weeks later, and something looked different about her. And I didn't want to say, have you lost weight? Because I wasn't sure, and I didn't want to insinuate. But she said, I took that advice you gave me. I said, I get to go to the gym, I choose to be fit, and I choose to be healthy. And she lost about 15 pounds. Now, the next letter is E. E stands for eliminate expectations. Expectations are the number 1 killer of joy in our journey. Expectations are when we say, my life looks like this, but it should look like that. Maybe it's, I should have gotten that degree. I should have quit that job. I should have taken that promotion. I should have moved. But the only time expectations are good are when you go to Starbucks. When you order a latte and they give you the cup, you expect it's going to say Starbucks on it, and it's going to be warm, and it's going to say latte on the side. It might have your name. That's when expectations are great. But if you think your life should look this way and it doesn't, why not trade that for gratitude? Every day I write 10 things I'm grateful for in a journal. It might be the same thing every day, but you know what? I believe that what you focus on expands. Even if it's, I like to look out my window and see the trees in my backyard. The next letter stands for L, which is let it go. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, to have the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Now, the opposite of that is trying to control people, or trying to wish somebody was a way that they are not, or trying to force people to change into something they're not. One of my favorite sayings from the Bible is, boundaries keep the pearls in and the pigs out. Sometimes when we don't have good boundaries, we can get tangled up in situations. We can get tangled up in events. We can get caught up in things that end up consuming all of our time and our energy, and it turns into a drama triangle. So what we mean by this is let it go. Why not move on? There's always a choice to do that. I stands for I choose me. I choose me means quit the comparison game. Do you compare the worst version of yourself to the best version of someone else? Now, one example I can think of is when I was in sales, which is probably half of my adult life, I would get these stack rankings. How many of you are in sales know what I'm talking about? Yeah, you're either at the top or you're at the bottom. And there were times I was down at the bottom of the list, which means I wasn't performing very well. And it was really disappointing. It felt like someone kicked me in the stomach. But one day I got a new habit and I asked myself, what are 3 things that I do or who I am that make me different than everybody in the entire sales force? And I thought, I'm positive, I'm courageous, I'm determined, and I have the woo factor, which means winning others over, which is a great thing to have when you're in sales. And every day when I would go out to my customers, I would play that out 110%. I'd drive around, I was listening to Tony Robbins, or I would listen to any type of motivational CD at that time, dating myself. For those of you that have those still, I still do in my car. But I would listen to things that would motivate me. I would even listen to these scrolls now in my car today, because these are ways that we can stay positive throughout the day, no matter what's going on. The next stands for E, is for enjoy the now. Enjoy the now. Enjoy this moment you're in right now. Look around this room. Look at everybody in the Zoom room. We are having a great time tonight, right?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. But what we have a tendency to do sometimes as human beings is we think about the past. We think about the past with regret, with guilt, with shame, wish it would have been that way, but it's not. And you know what? If you can introduce me to somebody that can change the past, please do, because I haven't figured out how to do it yet. So what we want to do instead is we want to look at the past and find the gift, find the meaning, find the purpose in some of those events. Because how many of you have been through something really bad and you look back and maybe you're glad it happened? There was something that came out of it that was better, right? We don't usually see that when it's happening. And the part of that being in the now is also quit worrying about the future, right? Worrying about the future that we have no control over gives us anxiety. So being in the now means maybe each day I spend time in a morning ritual. Maybe I take 5 minutes in silence. How many of you have ever driven your car and turned off the music? I did that today on the way here for an hour. And sometimes just being in silence is also about quieting the noise in our minds. That's mostly what's happening is noise. Yoga, meditation, reading, praying. There's a lot of ways you can clear the noise. The last that I want to share is F, stands for finding meaning and purpose. One of the teachings of Og Mandino is today I look at my life experiences as gifts that inspire me to serve other people. So instead of looking at all of these experiences as being horrible, what is the good in them? But furthermore, let's talk about COVID. COVID was a big test. It still is. We were talking out in the foyer just about how there are still implications that we experience today. There's social anxiety. There's a lot of turnover that I talked about earlier. But what we want to do with this is, first of all, I want to acknowledge all of you. If you got COVID, if you lost a friend, if you lost a family member, maybe you lost your job, maybe you lost your income. I have to give some recognition to Johnny Campbell. If you don't know who Johnny Campbell is, he is someone that lost the battle to COVID. But I'm grateful for Johnny because he was a distinguished Toastmaster when I joined Toastmasters, and I watched him speak and I thought to myself, God, I wish I could be up there like him. I mean, he would be in a district conference with 100 and who knows how many people, and he was nailing it. And I was still afraid to stand up and even talk. So that's another way that I can look at gratitude from that experience. Now, the last piece of wisdom I want to share with all of you tonight is that if you can make it a habit to find the good in everything and to take a habit of life is happening for me, I promise great things will come into your life. You will manifest more. And I know that because the last thing I'll share with you is after I had gotten divorced, sold my house, got laid off, moved back to St. Louis. Chicago will always be my home too, by the way. But what happened next is I went to this retreat. I signed up for a transformation retreat, didn't know anybody. Bob Proctor and another man named Raymond Aaron were really talking about it. So I thought this would be another great way to press the reset button after all I've been through. And it was my birthday week. And some people said, hey, go to this restaurant. I went with someone else and didn't think much of it. And it was a surprise party. I got to hear happy birthday sung in 8 different languages. To this day, I think it was one of the best birthdays of my life. But I found out and asked around, who sponsored this? This was such a nice idea. And they said, oh, it was a guy named Rudy, and there's another man named Nigel. Nigel and Rudy were both from England. And I started talking to Nigel, and we got to be really good friends. We've been through a lot of the same life circumstances, a lot of the same challenges. We got to be great friends. And then he went back to England. I went back to St. Louis, and then the pandemic hit. And the last thing I'll share with you is that we both made a pact that if this is meant to be, and if it's going to work out, it will. And if it's not, it won't. We just trusted the universe. And I will tell you, he moved to the United States. We got married last Labor Day. We bought a house. And so I can say now, life is happening for me. It's not happening to me. Thank you.
Was that awesome or what?